Time now to take a look at the French papers with Elena Casas. Good morning again,
Morning,
Elena. Now, we've seen a series of what you could call quite simply bad headlines for President Nicolas Sarkozy recently, and today is no different.
No, they do seem to get worse and worse over the last few weeks as the election campaign really kicks off. Let's start with this big number on the front page of Libération, 68%. That's the number of French people that, according to their poll, don't think that Sarkozy can win the coming election. So it looks pretty bad with those kind of poll statistics. Inside, they evoke the possibility that a lot of journalists have been talking about recently, that another candidate from within his own party, the right-wing UMP, could decide to stand against him. The main people in the frame would be Prime Minister François Fillon or the Foreign Minister Alain Juppé. They've both tried to stave off speculation about this over the weekend, both coming out and saying, we'll do anything to get the president re-elected. But that doesn't stop the papers speculating about it. One potential right-wing candidate to stand against him, the centrist former Environment Minister Jean-Louis Borloo, made a big announcement yesterday on primetime television saying he will not stand. But Libération says the fact that he's even been moved to point this out so publicly at this stage in the election campaign shows that someone within the Sarkozy camp is getting quite worried about other right-wing candidates standing against him, and they're clamping down on this kind of possible dissent. So he also makes the front page of the right-wing paper Le Figaro. Borloo isn't a candidate, is their headline. They're rather more positive about it than would expect, than left-wing Libération. They say he's made the right decision for France, not wanting to further muddle an already confused situation. But inside, they have to admit that the right wing isn't looking in a particularly good position in the run-up to this election. They interviewed the budget minister, Valérie Pécresse, and she says that Borloo has made the right decision because the right needs to be as unified as possible as they're facing difficult times.
Now, it's not just politics in today's French papers. Libération is also taking a look at Russia.
Yes, they're having a look at the case of Sergei Magnitsky. Now, he's the lawyer who blew the whistle on a €168 million tax fraud while working for a British investment fund in Moscow called Hermitage Capital. And after making accusations against some Interior Ministry officials, he was detained. He was in prison nearly a year. He was apparently refused medical attention, according to human rights organisations, and eventually died. Those human rights organisations say that was the result of beatings he received in custody. Now, his case has become quite an international diplomatic hot potato. British Prime Minister David Cameron raised it on a visit to Russia about a month ago, rather. And the bosses of that British investment fund that he's been working for have been trying to make it as big an international issue as possible. So Libération say that now 60 Russian high-ranking officials that were connected to this case have been banned from travelling to Britain and the US. Now, that might not seem like much of a sanction if they were involved in his death, the paper says, but you should bear in mind, according to them, that wealthy Russians send their children to school abroad, they go shopping abroad, they don't keep their money in Russia even. So this is quite a major sanction for them.
Now, you've also got a story for us from Le Figaro's health pages about the psychology of power.
Yes, their headline is How the Addiction to Power is Born. Now, they talk to psychologists, according to whom we can all be divided into two types of people, those who are more competitive and those who are more focused on cooperation. So there's one kind of person who in the workplace is always going to be more interested in their own prestige and one who's more interested in a general consensus among everyone who works there. It goes without saying, they say it's the first type of people who are more likely to become bosses. But apparently only a quarter of the people who have that personality type, according to these psychologists, are actually good enough at also engendering enough cooperation that their employees are happy to follow what they decide. So they say there's a very fine line between being the kind of person who has good leadership skills and the kind of person who just comes across to employees as a self-obsessed megalomaniac.
I won't comment on what any of us are, which category we fall into. And Zinedine Zidane back in the papers as well.
Yes, he's on the front page of Le Parisien. There's some politics in that paper as well. They're trying to get their readers interested in the socialist primary, which is coming up for its final vote in just a week's time. But they're far more interested in France's 2002 footballing hero, Zinedine Zidane. Yes, he gives them an interview saying that he wants to coach the French team, which most football fans would say that any team facing a French squad led by Zinedine Zidane should be worried. He says the current coach Laurent Blanc is doing an all right job and the team's bad results is because the players are too young and they have yet to grow into their role. But French football fans will be getting excited at the prospect of him coaching it, I'm sure.
Yes, and Zidane helped the French team win in '98 in the World Cup, so I'm sure there'll be plenty of people in favour of that move. Thank you very much for Elena Casas for that look at the French papers.